I like the movie very much. I think what's interesting is, and it came across in that interview, the part of the whole thing about Richard Gere is it's to do. I mean, he is an actor who can be cast well or can be cast badly, and he has made over the years some terrific films and some terrible films. When he is at his best, it is roles which get the measure of the fact that on the one hand, he has exactly what you're talking about. It was funny hearing you interviewing him because you could hear him charming. You could hear you reacting to him smiling at you, him doing that blinky twinkly thing.
Makes me a pushover, really.
No, it doesn't, because it's Richard Gere. And I mean, I feel exactly the same way because much as in the past, I have,
the twinkly thing didn't work on Graham Norton, though, did it? So
I didn't see that.
Well, it was quite awkward and tricky.
Okay, I didn't see
Although
that.
I thought Graham handled it fantastically well, but it was almost like a different Richard Gere that was on that. Anyway.
Okay, but the point is that it is possible to feel a number of different ways about Richard Gere at the same time. And the person who always summed up best for me was Mike Figgis, who got fantastic work out of him in Internal Affairs. And Mike Figgis said, you have to understand the thing with Richard Gere is that there is within him a kind of warring thing, which is on the one hand, he's serious and he takes the work seriously and he's, and he wants to do really good work. On the other hand, he's Richard Gere, the Hollywood star, and he has to work hard to not be Richard Gere, the Hollywood star. And what Mike Figgis realised was when you're looking at something like Internal Affairs, the trick is to bring out of him the sort of, the darkest, scrungy side. And in fact, Figgis worked with him twice. Second time it didn't work out, and the movie ended up being taken away from Mike Figgis. But the people who have got the best out of Richard Gere have understood that when on screen he has this thing that he's partly charming, partly distrustworthy, partly ridiculous, partly awe-inspiring, all those things at the same time. And when you look back at the great roles he's been, you think of things like American Gigolo, or right back to looking for Mr. Goodbar, Internal Affairs, and more recently The Hoax, of course, which got widely overlooked. These are films which play upon that slick, easy charm, but also the sense that underneath that there's something strange and something conflicted. And actually what Arbitrage does is it completely gets that about him. And the movie actually stands or falls on whether or not that feeling about Richard Gere's character works. And it does, because he is charming, he is slick, he is suave, his company is a pleasure to be in, and yet at the same time his character is interesting. When you said to him, does the character have any morality, and he said, well, his morality is marginal, because obviously the other area in which we've seen this drama to some extent before will be things like Margin Call. I think there's also a little bit of Michael Clayton in the back. So as far as the drama itself is concerned, there's not a whole lot of new stuff in here. It's people who are moving in this world of money and power and who are charming but morally duplicitous, and on the one hand they're dealing with family, on the other hand they're dealing with secret affairs. They are lying through their teeth whilst being, it's a kind of the Gordon Gekko thing. And the reason it works with Arbitrage is that Richard Gere crystallizes all those things. It was interesting. There's something on the IMDb which says that originally Al Pacino was down to play this, and then Richard Gere took over, because there's the famous story is that Gere at one point was going to play the role in Cruising that Al Pacino ended up doing. And Friedkin always said he would have been very, very interesting, because there is that whole, that conflict thing is something he does brilliantly. I really liked the film, and I really liked it because when Richard Gere is allowed to not allowed, when he is made to do that stuff, there's almost no one to touch him. The fact that he's grown into these roles, actually, as he's, the older he gets, the more convincing they are. You look at his work in things like Intersection and Unfaithful, and he has perfectly matured into those things. And it's completely appropriate that at around the same time, out in cinemas is Movie 43, which is a movie which makes you think you have no judgment at all. What on earth are you doing in this? It's a personal friend, but I can't remember his name.
Maybe this guy Charles Wesley just has something on all of these guys.
No, I don't think that's.
Or he's godfather to all their stepdaughters.
Yeah, that's more likely. So the thing, I really, really felt that watching it was a pleasure for me as a long-standing Richard Gere fan who has been with him through the thick and the thin, and I still think some of his best work is in Breathless, that remake of Brown. I'm not saying that to be ironic. I genuinely think he's terrific in Breathless. But part of what's terrific about him is that he's ridiculous at the same time as taking himself seriously. And the reason Arbitrage works is that at the same time as being seduced by his company, you're repelled by what he's doing, and it works. The tension works all the way through. That you can't quite get onto an even footing with how you feel about his character. The drama itself, the story itself, the narrative itself, the arc of it itself isn't new or original. What makes it distinctive is that it has exactly the right person to do that performance in Gere, and it's the best work I've seen Gere do in a long time, and that makes me happy. My whole thing about Richard, I absolutely love him, and I will see anything that Richard Gere is in. My whole premise, and we had a conversation about this before, is that Richard Gere is a man who acts with his blinking eyes. He does more blinking than anybody else on screen ever. And one of the ways in which Richard Gere regularly, emotes is he does this thing where he blinks, he drops his head, and he exhales, right? So we had a clip made up of, I know we've reviewed the film now and we like it very much, and it's all great. This is a clip in which the production team went through and they struck a bell every time Richard did the blinking magic. Do you want to hear it?
Yes, please.
Richard Gere, Blinking Majesty. Here we go.
What is going on? Are you afraid of this meeting?
They haven't signed the papers.
Oh, I thought that's why you went down there.
Yeah, so did I. For some reason they're stalling. And I didn't sleep on the plane.
But I was thinking, maybe we could just take off. What do you say? Let's have an adventure, right? So, I want to have some fun. I mean, seriously, how much money do we need? Do you want to be the richest guy in the cemetery?
I don't want to be in the cemetery.
I mean, it is a majestic thing, but once you click with it with Richard Gere, you realise he is a man who acts with his blinking, and
Maybe there was a
well.
wind blowing in his face.
Or maybe that's what Richard Gere does. That's his trope, his signature trope. Double blink, look down, exhale. In fact, there is actually one scene in that in which he does exactly that, and I almost cheered because it is a thing of great beauty.
21 blinks in 26 seconds. I think it was probably, maybe he was doing it because, he's lying and is supposed to be an indication of someone who's not telling the truth, isn't it? If you blink a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe he's doing it for
Try
that
doing it
reason.
with an officer and a gentleman. The scene in An Officer and a Gentleman where I've got no place to go. Actually, what we should do is you should get a movie in which Richard Gere plays opposite Haley Joel Osment in AI. So Haley Joel Osment doesn't blink the whole time, but Richard blinks for both of them.